Game week 6 in the Premier League. Talking FPL, going over rankings, going over some differentials, maybe some captain ideas as well. But we have Manchester City home against Burnley, kind of takes up all of the headlines this week because their implied goal total is almost 2.72 as I'm doing this video. Wouldn't be surprised if it moves up a little bit as we get closer to the weekend. Spurs are next up. They're the only other team above a 2 implied goal total, 2.07. These implied goal totals are over on the RotoWire cheat sheets. YouTube 15, YouTube 1.5. If you're not a subscriber, check that out. But the other big favorites, not big favorites, but the other favorites, Everton are actually the third biggest favorite as I'm doing this video, home against West Ham. Chelsea, Nottingham Forest are next up. And then in terms of implied goal total, Chelsea are actually third, home against Brighton. They're just under 2, 1.9. Liverpool at Crystal Palace, 1.84. It's a tough matchup at Crystal Palace. 1.84, almost 2 seems like a pretty big number given what Crystal Palace have done this season, what they've done against Liverpool recently as well. Fifth on the list, Manchester United at Brentford. We know that Brentford defense hasn't really had the most success, but you trust Manchester United. So Manchester United 1.77 implied goal total. That's fifth best on the slate. And looking at the rankings, so we put all those thoughts into the rankings, looking at the top 10, looking at captain. Of course, a lot of discussion. Should you triple captain Erling Haaland? And he's 42% going up by the day. Haaland could be above 50% by the time we start game week 6 because he's going to be the most popular player this week. Manchester City have the best upcoming schedule as well. If we go over to the fixture difficulty ranker over on RotoWire, according to the table right now, Manchester City have the most favorable next 5 matches. So you're going to see a bunch of Manchester City players get some recognition here. Home against Burnley, at Brentford, home against Everton, at Aston Villa, home against Bournemouth. A pretty good run there. Next up, again, the second biggest favorite this week is Spurs. They're home against Wolves, at Leeds, home Villa, at Everton, and then home against Chelsea. And from there, it's a little hit or miss in terms of who has good schedules. Liverpool has a pretty decent schedule coming up, but that's after at Crystal Palace, at Chelsea. After that, they have home against Man United, at Brentford, and then home against Aston Villa, and then at Manchester City. That's what is that, game week 11. So that's a little bit in the future there. But so as wild card is a popular thing for game week 6, and a lot of people are looking at those Man City players for good reason. How do you get around from being like everyone else? I think Erling Haaland, there's not really a point to fade Erling Haaland at this point because he's going to be on more than 50% of teams. He has better than 50% odds to score home against Burnley in this game. And his odds, we saw this a couple years ago when Man City were cruising, minus 200, minus 300 to score an actual goal, which just doesn't compare with anyone else in the league. And then you throw in, he's going to be popular. He's going to be one of the most captain players every week. It's hard to get away from it. 2 years ago, I went in, was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If Haaland's first season, I was like, I'm just going to fade Haaland and see what happens. And it didn't work. It didn't work. I believe I didn't have him the entire season. That was when he put in however many goals he had, and you needed him to have any kind of relevance in FPL. He started the season well. He's always started the season well. He started last season well and kind of fell off a little bit, picked up a little bit of an injury issue, and then didn't really close that well either. But this great schedule, a good start to the season. It's hard to get off them. How do you get different from everyone else? We're looking at Rangers. Rangers is over 30% of FPL teams. Is that really worth it? I mean, we like his price, but I think one interesting player here is I'm getting in that game week 6. I'm getting to the rankings a little bit. Doku is 6.4 million, sub 5%. Just cheaper than Foden. Foden with set pieces, okay. Is Foden worth the extra money than Doku because he has those set pieces? Maybe, but the comparisons of Foden's price and other players like him, and Doku's price and other players like him, I think Doku is pretty interesting because Pep, we've seen the last 3 games. It was what was it? Game week 4, game week 5, and the Champions League match. The exact same starting 11. Yeah, the exact same starting 11. We saw Doku in the wing. We saw Foden. We saw Bernardo Silva. We saw Rangers. We saw Rodri start all those matches as well. And I think as long as we have these injuries here and guys like Cherokee isn't really coming back soon, Aitner isn't coming back soon, the fact that Doku has played well in, I think, all of these games, he's looked solid. I think you throw that in there, and why isn't Doku a little higher? I think that's a great differential. Maybe not for a captain this week. I guess you could go differential captain on Doku this week. You could go Foden as well, but I just like the fact that he's a little cheaper if you need that extra money. I like Doku as it's kind of funny to say, okay, Man City have the best upcoming schedule, and you're saying Doku is a differential. Yeah, it's not that difficult to get there. Sub 5% with Doku, and just because FPL, we have social media, we have all these people basically saying these are the players you need. Not many people are going off of the obvious plays. We have the obvious plays. We have DefCon. We have all these notable players that everyone is kind of suggesting. And that's why players like Foden and Doku aren't really popular. That's why Saka right now coming off his injury. That's why he's not popular. Xavi Simons has kind of gone under the radar as he's working up his minutes. If we see him consistently start for Tottenham, he should be higher than the 4% or whatever he's at right now. So there's players like that where you can get different than a lot of people. It's not overly difficult. Of course, the difference here for some of these, okay, Simons is 7.1 million. Kudus, who is very much more popular, he's 6.6 million. So you got to find the difference here. But looking at the game week 6 rankings, going through this whole list, so we of course we have the Manchester City players. That's not very surprising. Haaland, Foden, Doku, guys like Rangers, Rodri, Bernardo, any of the defenders. Those guys don't crack the top 10, but any of these guys could be in play if we see 5 goals from Manchester City. Wouldn't be surprising. Could see a clean sheet from them as well. So any of these guys technically could be playing for captaincy. But if you want to get a little different, Richarlison went 90 for Spurs over the weekend in game week 5. Pretty good sign. I know Solanke is coming back, but he's still not 100%. So you think that Richarlison's probably going to get at least 2 more starts in league play. Again, next week we have Champions League returning. So what are the minutes for Richarlison going to look like? Because he's not going to be starting 3 matches in 8 days. That's probably a fact. Richarlison's not going to start that many. But what are the minutes going to look like once we have a fully healthy squad for Spurs? If that ever happens, what are Richarlison's minutes going to look like? For at least I'd say the next 2 game weeks, Richarlison will be the starting striker for Spurs, if not longer. So there's an option. He's the most likely goal scorer for Spurs, and I think that's relevant in itself. Bruno Fernandes is actually cracking the top 5 because in the projections I put together, he reaches defensive contributions and that he gets the 2 points. So he's actually in there throwing PKs against the nervy Brentford back line. And a couple other guys, Mohamed Salah, okay, not surprising. Given that Liverpool have one of the higher projected goal totals. I wouldn't captain Salah this week if I had him. Grealish also cracks the list. He's had a lot of assists, great home matchups against West Ham. Whoever starts at striker for Everton, I think their value gets reduced because they're not going 90 minutes. Beto, Barry, no matter who starts, seems like 60, 70 minutes is on the table for who starts up front for them. So that kind of reduces their value. Where you have Njaye and seems like Grealish might be the most locked in for 90 minutes of their attacking players there. João Pedro, home against Brighton, not in a bad spot there. He's also in there. Bukayo Saka, we'll see what kind of minutes he's going to get, see how healthy he is. This is a full week removed from his return from his hamstring injury. And then we get in past the top 10. You got more Spurs guys. We'll see if Isak starts. Isak is starting Tuesday. So it's going to be a question, is he going to start Tuesday? And then is he going to start at Crystal Palace? That'll be something to watch. And, of course, everyone's favorite, Semenyo. It's kind of near the top 10, but at Leeds isn't actually the easiest matchup. Leeds have been playing some defensive matches. Bournemouth have been playing defensive matches. So this probably won't be a week where I captain someone like Semenyo or differential like Evan Nielsen. But one guy I did want to point out for taking off, Kevin Shada is on under 1.1% of teams. He's a little expensive. He's more expensive than you probably want from a Brentford player, but $7 million for a midfielder. He's a forward. He seems to be more locked in for minutes. He didn't enter the season 100%, but he seems more locked in for minutes than Ego or Thiago. He doesn't. I don't think he has PKs. We already saw Thiago take PK this season. I believe that was without Shada on the pitch, but he's sub 1%. Pretty easy look here. Just if you want to be different for a 7 million midfielder who we saw him score goals last year. We have already seen him score goals this season. Probably Brentford's from open play, probably their best guy, most likely player to score goals, I would say, from open play at least. I'd say he is more likely to score than someone like Igor Thiago. But that is one differential I'm looking at here. Home against Manchester United. And then if you look at their upcoming schedule, maybe it's not the greatest because they have the other Manchester, they have Manchester City in the next game. But someone I would put on my radar here as the weeks go on. But that's what we got game week 6. You can check out RotoWire for all the rankings, for the cheat sheets, and for a little bit of everything else.